Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. In 1981, Dragonslayers came to theaters and didn't do too well. It only made $14 million out of its $18 million budget, and it was considered a darker movie for Disney, of all people, to do. And speaking of strange bedfellows, the company that decided to pick up the game's rights was no other than Strategic Publications Incorporated, SPI, known for war games. So what does a war game company do when it wants to make a game for the masses? Let's look at it. Today we're going to be going over with you Dragonslayer from SPI. Alright, so the plot's pretty straightforward, and the reason it may sound familiar is because it's been done in like 2 or 3 other movies or stories on TV that I've seen before, and I think it's all actually taken from an ancient tale that I can't think of right now. If you know, let me know in the comments down below. But the idea is, to appease the dragon Vermithrax, they have to sacrifice a virgin twice a year, right? So basically, and by the way, Vermithrax is a cool name, but the full name of the dragon is Vermithrax pejorative. Now, when I heard pejorative, I'm thinking to myself, am I in English class? Or does a pejorative happen before or after a noun kind of thing, right? But actually, pejorative means expressing contempt or disapproval. So, okay, that works, I guess. And I really wanted to watch the movie because I haven't seen it in forever. You would think I would watch it more often, but there are certain movies that I watch over and over again. So the thing is, I went to Pluto or Tubi or one of those places that give you the free movie for free with free ads. Usually is really good for older movies. Unfortunately, I couldn't find Dragonslayer there, so I just ended up watching Krull. Speaking of movies I watch over and over again, and the funny thing is, both of them really did not do good at the box office, and they were panned by critics for the most part. But it's a shame because, as a guy who loves fantasy and science fiction, they were both top-notch in my book. Alright, so let's take a look at the rules, and I do mean that literally, okay? We're going to take a look at the rules here because there's only 2 pages of rules, alright? And of course, that's not a surprise. This is 1981. It's a mass-market kind of game. You're going to try to get as many people in the public to play, and you don't want them to not enjoy it by having it too complicated. Now, that being said, you'll notice that one thing as a war gamer that you'll notice that it doesn't use, and that is called the case system. Now, you all are familiar with it. You may not know it's called the case system, though. The case system is that wargaming ease where they put everything in brackets and numbers, section 3.0, 3.1, 3.11, etc., etc., going down to explain every case. It does work as a good system for referencing things in, of course, bigger games that are more complicated. But here, they absolutely chose not to do that, which really makes you wonder, though, in some of the smaller games that the SPI put out that were also rather simple, did they really need to do the case method on those? I can imagine that if they didn't, maybe some of their games would actually not be as intimidating. So Dragonslayer's played for 2 to 4 people now. It's a significantly different game in each. In a 2-player game, it's actually a lot more winnable because you're going to go after resources on the board and it's limited. And of course, with 2 people, you're not hindering each other as much and there's just more to grab. While with a 4-player game, you are always going to be getting in each other's way, and there is only going to be a finite number of items on the board. So that's interesting. Now, everybody starts with 2 Kingsmen. Now, these Kingsmen actually can work against you as well on the board. I'll get in that later, but you get to move them after you move your character. All right, and these are meant to get in the way of the other characters and slow them down. All right. Now, Galen is the only one that actually gets items beforehand and companions or ahead of time, and that's the Amulet of Power, Ulrich's Ashes, and the friend Hodge. And he's the only one with combat value, so he's got a 2 combat value on the lower left-hand side. That's where their combat value is. Hodge got 1. So they're already on their way, but they have, as you can see here in the pentagram, though, Galen only has 1 magic point, which means when he's going out getting spells and stuff like that, he can only carry 1, while all these other guys can carry up to 3 to make up, of course, for their lack of combat power. And we'll go into why that's all important in a little bit. Now I have the game semi set up here. So at first, all the characters are on their own home abodes, basically off the island of Erlin. So they, on their first turn, they're actually all going to sea on the first turn. And all the Kingsmen, you get to choose where they, what they start on the castle. So you all get to choose what castle they start on. But we're going to start here with Ulrich over here and Galen over here. I'm going to put 2 more tiles over here because the thing is, every one of these cities or villages have 2 tiles on them, and now the bigger cities like Swanscombe have 4 tiles on them, and these are the resources that you're going to be trying to get. Now the thing on your turn, and we're going to start with Ulrich here first, because in the game Ulrich always goes first, then the Myrmidon's sisters, then old Kevin, then finally Galen. That's always the order they go in. Now it's easy enough to move around. You get 3 days of travel, which you really could call action points. Really, you get 3 actions a turn, but they call them days. So what can you do on a day? Well, movement's pretty simple. Again, it's a game for the masses, right? So you can move from a port to sea. I mean, there are places that say have the little port symbol on them, and you can go to sea, and then to sea to a sea, and of course just travel by the road to another town. And what else? So movement's pretty simple. Now, when you get into a town, if you want to pull over a tile, that'll take a day to search for a tile. And of course, Ulrich would simply get this companion. You get whatever you flip over. So there's a companion, and then you can get items as well. So the thing is, and they all differ in combat value of the companions. They're going to be necessary. But you also have a little pressure luck here, because when you think things are going good, then you can there's a lot of hindrances as well. You can get companion turnover tiles that say the companions are killed, or an item gets stolen, or the worst one, a companion defects or just deserts, which means not only do you lose the companion, they also take one of the items along with them, being a complete jerk, right? So after you've moved your 3 days, it's time for your Kingsmen to move 3 days. The only difference is they can't go to the ocean, and they can't turn over tiles. Their only purpose is to really hinder your opponents. So basically, Veneer here would go 1, 2, 3 right here, and then this one would go 1, 2, 3, pretty much cornering Galen in. Now, how does that hinder Galen? So on Galen's turn, the thing is, when you want to move into a city or a village that has a Kingsman tile in it, even your own, by the way, it costs you an extra day. So that's pretty much it. It costs you 2 action points, pretty much. And the same thing is if you want to move out to another city. If you're in one and the Kingsmen are there, it's going to cost you an extra day's travel just to get out of it. Okay. Now the only other way that this can hinder you is, but it's kind of weird, is if one of these Kingsmen land on your space, then they can challenge you. And if you think you can defeat them, you can, and then you just send them away. And this is kind of weird though, because there's only two numbers, okay, 6 and 8. Now the thing is, with this tabletop simulator, they don't have the backs right for them, which they don't show the strength of the unit. So you only go by your combat strength, okay? No magic, nothing like that. Matter of fact, none of the items that you pick up actually help in this at all. It's only the combat strength of you and your companions to get away from the King's men and defeat them. But the thing is, since it's only a 6 and an 8, because you have the option to retreat. This is the big thing, because you can retreat every time and just take the road, as they say, and just go on a road, and it's a free movement, and you just get away. Okay. Now, and so if you were less than 6, you're always going to do it. So there's no reason for a player to actually move on your guy. You're just giving Galen free movement, right? Or your opponent free movement. So you just keep them away. It's only as if and if you do think he can defeat you, why would you move him on there anyway? Because then they get defeated and they have to go all the way. When they're defeated, they go back to the castle. So why would you even do it? It's really weird. And the thing is, normally these tiles are flipped over and they don't show you whether it's a 6 or 8. So the only time that's actually ever interesting is if you have a strength of 6 or 7, which means you'll defeat one but not the other. So you might want to take your chance it's really kind of weird. I was actually playing another way because I was making an assumption that if you took the road, you could, but you couldn't, being a war gamer, you couldn't go into an enemy force, just like with, most war games. You can't retreat into the enemy, right? So I was thinking that would be a good reason for it to do if you had them surrounded, right? So otherwise, and this would really work if you had, we were playing with 4 players. If you're all kind of helping surround them, so that you surround them, then another guy comes in, because with only 2 king's men, you're not going to be able to surround them enough, and he'll always get away. But if you were playing 2 to 4 and you're playing with this rule that I ended up playing with, you attack and then he's forced to fight, which means they'll end up losing their turn, and that makes it a lot more interesting in that regard. Now, the only other thing that I was thinking would be also a good thing is, since it's a game of a little bit of chance and luck anyway, just make the attack, but you also get to roll a die and just add that to your attack or your combat strength, and maybe even the enemy as well, actually, just to make it a little bit more fair. Actually, yeah, you'd both roll a die. That would have been good, and then it would just mix it up, so it wouldn't be so automatic. Of course, 1d6 on a game where it's only an 8 or a 6 really would be really fluctuating and stuff like that. But this is pretty much more of a kid's game anyway, so I don't think that would matter. So that's what I think would have worked. All right, so when you think you're strong enough, or you just need to make a desperate attempt, it's time to go up against the dragon. Okay, so basically, when you're going up against the dragon, you're going to be worried about 2 stats: combat strength and your magical strength, where before you were only worried about combat strength. All right, and the only constant in this battle is your companions. Just like outside when you're defeating the king's men, they are a static set of numbers. Everything else you own, spells, magic items, regular items, they're all varied depending on where you fight the dragon, because there's 6 different areas where you can fight the dragon in his lair, if he's even there at all. But you determine that by flipping over the tile. This time we're going to go up against the dragon in the passage. Okay, so obviously we start with the combat strength. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're already ahead of 5. So we're already in good shape there, but now we get to add more. Now the funny thing is, the far mirror is just an item. Has nothing to do with, it's not even on here. It's something outside of regular play, so we don't get nothing for that. Then the heart bow is the first one here, but because we meet him in the passage, we get Jack for this. And you're going to notice this a lot. Like, you're going to have all these weapons and stuff, and it's going to be totally varied of what you end up with. So the heart bow ends up with nothing. The hammer of Morgan actually gives us 1. So now we're at an 8 strength, combat strength that is. That's great. Charm of weaponry right here. It's going to give us 1 no matter what. So we're at a 9 combat strength. So that's looking pretty good. But we need a 5 magic strength to keep going. So now we only got the 3 magic spells that Ulrich has, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, by the way. Ulrich's got 3 pentagrams, which means he can carry 3 spells. All of the wizards in this can carry 3 spells, with the exception of Galen, which only can carry 1, because he's got a combat strength of 2. All right, so we got the anti-fire spell, and some of these spells actually only give you combat strength, by the way, the ones up here. So the anti-fire spell is only up here, and he's in the passage, so that now we got a 1 more combat strength. So now we're at a 10. Okay, so that's nice, but we needed a 5 to even have a chance against the dragon. We got the spell of agility, and that again is combat strength. So that is a 0, so it didn't even help us at all there. And the spell of animation, which comes down here, which actually gives us some magic strength, and it's only a 2. All right, so we've already lost, and we're going to lose some people. And this is where the major hiccup in the game is at, because basically, if you don't have magic strength, you ain't got nothing. Now, mind you, if you don't have combat strength, you don't have nothing either, but you're going to have the combat strength by the time you get there, because you can't carry more than 1 item for every companion you have. So you're going to have the companions if you've got the items anyway, and you're probably going to have more of a combat strength than 5 no matter what. That's not really going to be a problem. The problem comes down to these spells, which there's not that many on the board, and items. There's only 2 items that happen there, and one of them is the Dragon Shield, which you can't get unless you're Galen, okay, the main character, who, by the way, also starts with the Amulet of Power. All right, he may only have one spell that he can carry, but at least he's already got 3 points and everything else already, and you can't combat him even with the King's Men. He keeps everything and just gets to lose his turn. You can't take anything away from him unless he goes into the Dragon's Lair and gets defeated and he drops it somehow, and then maybe you can pick it up. So basically, this is really slanted on Galen. There's no doubt about it, having that Amulet of Power, which is 3 magic points right from the start. And he could just pick up any one little spell, and then he can get the Dragon Shield from Ulrich, because he's got Ulrich's Ashes, and somehow get that from him. And then you could see how that helps. And it's like, that's the only way. Because even if you had 3 spells, like a regular magician, and you got 3 spells, you're still not really guaranteed anything. Look at that. And you have to roll to see, or pick a tile to see where you're going. What was if you actually had anti-fire, agility, and hellfire right there, and you got the high altitude? It would be, you'd get nothing. And even if you're here, none of these. If you had this combo, there's actually not a combo that gives you 5 strength points. You could only be of help to defeat the dragon after Galen makes his first attempt and maybe hits it for a point or 2. Then the dragon's strength would be at a 3, and then you can go in, because as long as it's equal, the magic strength, your magic strength is at least equal to the dragon's strength, you'll be okay. So this is a big flub. It's centered all about Galen, which I understand because it's a movie, but at the same time, then why not make it just a cooperative game? And have a referee or something control the King's Men, which is pretty much a boring job in this game. So it really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this is the frustrating thing with SPI, because every time they had a chance to go mainstream, they just totally dropped the ball. Whether it be Dragonslayer or that 3-in-1 pack that they had, which had a Napoleonic game, which is actually terrific. But the other 2 games, because the idea was to bring other people from those factions to their world, which was fantasy and science fiction, those games were lackluster or just didn't work at all. The Creatures of New York and the horrific Tower of Azan. Oh my goodness. I just don't understand it. And then they had a second edition. They tried another edition of the game, which was a flat pack, a flatter version to resemble the Parker Brothers games and family games at the time, so it would be on their shelves. So, and it was a good strategy on that too. But the problem is, again, with the game, they also made it a Galen-only game. It was the only way to win is really with Galen. And do you really want a family game that kids are going to fight over who gets to play Galen because he's the only one that can really win? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And maybe it's the war game in them. It's got to be a simulation. It can't be any other way. It's got to be, they did this, so we got to do that. Galen's the hero. Galen must, not just an advantage. Not just an advantage. I could dig that. But there was really no other realistic way for anybody to win other than to play Galen or have Galen in the game and have all that other stuff. Could you imagine not playing with Galen in the game, just playing with the 3 wizards? I don't. Oh, gosh. Bottom line is, I could go on this game because I really wanted to kind of like it. Especially the way I played it. Actually, I made an accidental rule that actually seemed to work more for 4 players to kind of work against each other rather than just kind of lightly hinder each other. I thought it worked pretty well with the not being able to retreat kind of thing. But with modifications, and it probably wouldn't be much, quite honestly. You got to change those numbers at the end there, and make things a little bit stronger in cases. So it's definitely fixable. It's just frustrating that guys at SPI didn't come up with it in the first place. It just tells me it wasn't play tested. They pushed it to market. They thought it was good enough, and they made a cash grab where they could have gone on to bring people in to their wheelhouse for other games, or maybe they just didn't want to do games like this, which is funny. They would want to do one in the first place if they didn't want to and just do their war games all day, and which is fine. Just do that, but don't try to poke your head out into the common man's world and try to do something. It's just so frustrating. But anyway, guys, that's my rant about Dragonslayer, and I'll see you next video.